Right guys, hello, we've got another video for you because Star Wars Squadrons has finally gone live, or should I say welcome pilots to the Starfighter Academy. I'm here in an Imperial hangar thanks to Virtual Desktop. Don't worry about all of these guys there with me, they're not going to hurt you. But what I wanted to do for my first video is actually talk about the options and the controls, especially help those of you out on PC who are using a HOTAS. I wanted to buck the trend. I know a lot of people, their first video will be their first impressions, most likely doing the game in VR, and they're just going to go wow all the time. I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that helps you go wow, because you can really enjoy the game, whether it's in VR or on your monitor or TV. We'll do timestamps to help you find your way around the video. I will quickly tell you, I have played the game. Really enjoying it. It's everything I thought it would be. It's absolutely amazing in VR. There is a prologue which you must play. It's like a tutorial. You start off as the Imperials in a TIE fighter. It will then switch you over to the Rebels in an X-Wing. And when you've done that, it gives you the option to either continue the story or you can come out to the main menu and go into the multiplayer. You can do the Fleet Battle Mode tutorial. You can play the game against the computer, the AI, or you can play against real people. And remember, it's cross play. I'm on PC, my brother's on PlayStation, but that doesn't matter anymore. We can either play together or possibly against each other. And I think that's absolutely amazing that games will let us do it. So we've got quick match if you want to quickly get into the action. There's customization there, not just for the Starfighter, but for our pilot as well. Now I've got a couple of little bits and pieces because I pre-ordered. Everything else I've got to play the game. I can't buy it. I've got to improve my rank. There's decals, paint jobs, all kinds of things, extra weapons. You only get that by ranking up playing the game. So we'll head straight into the options. I will not go through everything because we'll be here a month of Sundays, but we will quickly cover as much as we can. There's pilot experience. It says standard. All this really means is, do you want the HUD on or do you want it off? HUD is head up display. If we have it on, if I target something, and it will give me an arrow to point me in the right direction. It's kind of useful. Instruments only mode will turn the HUD off. It's more immersive, but more difficult. I will eventually want to do that because it will just feel more lifelike when I'm in VR. Then we've got the difficulty settings. There is a story mode. If you just want to enjoy the Star Wars story, enjoy the experience, those of us that really enjoy these types of games, we're probably going to want to up it up to veteran, maybe ace, depending on our skill level. There's auto target next there. I do suggest you turn it on, especially if you've got the HUD on. And what it's going to do is once you've blown up an X-Wing or a TIE fighter, it will select a new target for you. And then the arrow can point you in the direction that you want to be going to get back into the fight. Of course, you can always target something else that comes across your sights, but it's just useful for the game to give you a friendly nudge in the right direction where you should be going. So we've got an awful lot of options to get through. I will point out under video, there are settings for VR and settings for 2D. So if you want to switch between the two, that's up to you. If your graphics card isn't amazing, you can probably do better settings on your monitor than you could in VR. So it's just worth pointing out. I've got a 980 Ti. So at the moment, it doesn't think I'm doing VR. It thinks it's doing it 2D on a monitor, and it's almost maxed it out. So the 980 Ti, very good card, top of the line 5 years ago. Today, it's actually pretty average. If you've got a 1070, a 1070 Ti, 1660 Super, something like that, they're kind of mid-range cards now, then yeah, you get a similar kind of performance. Lots of people might have a 1060 or a 1650 Super. They're similar to each other. They're not as strong as my 980 Ti, but you should still get some pretty good graphic settings through your monitor. All depends. Some of you might have a 2080 Ti trying to do it in 4K. I don't know. We all have different kit. We've got audio. Now, obviously, doing the volume settings and subtitles, that's pretty obvious, but I wanted to come in here just so you guys know it's Squadrons. We want to be in the squad and we want to talk to our squad mates, and we want to come in here and just make sure that we've got the right mic selected. So I've got it under Rift S, but when I first played the game, it had picked up on my webcam microphone, which is much further away from me. I want to use the Rift S mic. It's good enough, close enough to my mouth to hear me. We've also got the microphone mode, so you can have it as open mic, so it's always active, or push to talk. It's up to you. You select what you want to do. So we've done gameplay, we've done video, done audio, VR settings. So we can toggle it in and out of VR and snap tab when we're looking around inside the hangars. Not too much to worry about in there. What we do really want to worry about are the controls. So before we talk about rebinding things, which is going to be very important for HOTAS users, we just go through these other options very quickly. So invert look, invert flight. So I've done that because when I pull back on the stick, I want the nose to go up. When I push up on the joystick, pushing forwards, the nose goes down. That's just how I'm used to flying airplanes. That's how it's going to be. But if you want up to be up, that's up to you. Don't invert the flight. We've got throttle input mode. This can either be continuous or done in steps. Now I want continuous because I'm using the throttle. I'm going to make gradual adjustments to get the speed that I want. If I do it in steps, maybe I've got a gamepad. I'm just going to nudge the left thumbstick. So each time I nudge it, it can go up in steps, 10%, maybe 20%, 25%, whatever you want to do, whichever mode you want to use. That's really your preference. We've got throttle friction. When enabled, the throttle gauge moves slower through the center, making it easier to reach optimal maneuverability. So yeah, at about 50% throttle, we turn tighter. As you go faster, you don't turn as tightly. So it just makes it a little bit easier to get it in the sweet spot. Lots and lots of other options, but what you want to have a look at, we've got comms wheel, input mode, targeting wheel. These are radial menus that come up, and I've done it as toggle. So I don't have to hold that button down to bring up the menu. It just makes it easier for me to make the selections. We've got the sensitivity for our controllers. I'm using a flight stick, so I've said about 55%. See if I'm happy with that. Might need to tweak it around a little bit. Happy with a throttle at 50, but it's telling me flight stick one device is the T16000M. That's my joystick, the flight stick. Flight stick two device is the TWCS throttle. I bought the HOTAS pack. Thrustmaster also did this as a space sim pack, and that would have given me two joysticks. So I've got HOTAS, but I could have had HOSAS. HOTAS is hand on throttle and stick. HOSAS is hand on stick and stick. I have a joystick for my left or right hand. On PC, we have the choice. Everybody has different gear. Maybe you've got a Thrustmaster Warthog. The guys that are really into sims, they buy VKB and Virpil gear, some pretty expensive stuff. But just be aware, us PC users do get a few extra options, which is nice. So we'll head into remapping the controls. We'll go into the flight controls. So we've got keyboard and mouse. I don't know why anybody would want to fly with keyboard and mouse, but you can if you want to. The only reason I care about keyboard bindings is that I will use voice attack software to use my voice. And voice attack, when it hears phrases, it will then do the keyboard key associated with that phrase. So voice attack's about £9 on Steam. It's very, very, very cool. Adds a lot of immersion, but it also helps people with disabilities. Maybe they're missing an arm. They can use the joystick with one arm, but they can't operate a throttle and push buttons with the other. So to be able to use their voice is incredibly helpful. There's guys that make profiles. People do it for the community for free. You've got the HCS voice pack website. You can go there. They charge for their packs. They're not really that expensive. I've already put an order in. It was £10. They do all the hard work for us, and I'm quite happy to pay them to do that. But just to give an example, so there's Boost, and I can, if I wanted to do it myself, I can make my own profile and I can come up with my own phrase. So maybe if I say punch it, that will then boost. When it hears punch it, it will press space. We can do really, really advanced phrases as well. So I could say incoming little buddy. And when voice attack hears that, I'm going to tell it, right, I want to focus the shield's rear. There's stuff coming behind me, but there's not actually a keyboard bind for that. So I would need to set up the keyboard binds. And that's one of the cool things about buying the HCS pack. They give you software as well, which will automatically do all the key bindings that they want to use for their phrases. But just to give you an example, if you want to be geeky and make your own, we can say incoming little buddy, shields get focused rear, max power goes into engines, and it deploys countermeasures. Maybe there's a missile coming at us, and all of those actions can be done with just one phrase. It looks cool and it feels cool to do it. So yeah, that's the keyboard commands and voice attack. Go over to controller. I'm sure lots of people play it with controller, and there's nothing wrong with that if you're on console or PC. In fact, if you're in VR, your first playthrough, I would suggest if you've got a gamepad that you use it. The prologue works as a tutorial. So as you leave the hangar, it will say increase throttle, and then it will give you the little hint on the screen what to do. Now for the gamepad, it's forwards on the left thumbstick. We use gamepads all the time. We don't even really need to look at them. We know where all the buttons are, and we know what these symbols mean. RT is right trigger, LB is left shoulder button. We know where B is. We know where the D-pad is. We know where X and A is. When we do the flight stick, it will say push button 5 on joystick 1, and you'll think, what the hell's that? You don't know. You're in VR. You can't see the joystick where they are. So you'll feel a bit stupid. You'll probably die. So it's probably best that you just stick with controls that you're going to know. Use the gamepad if you want. The other thing I'll point out is that you can rebind these controls, but you could use the gamepad as a poor man's HOTAS. If you couldn't get a HOTAS because stock was low or pricing is just ridiculous at the moment, but you've got a cheap joystick, fly with a joystick, put the gamepad in your left hand and use your thumb to adjust the throttle. Maybe bind some of the keys so it's more useful for your left hand. Do what you guys want to do. Some of you might have a pretty basic HOTAS. It's meant for console. You don't have as many buttons as I do. Some people have more buttons than me, but I can supplement my controls by using the gamepad as well as my throttle if I really want to. That's something I do in DCS World, which is a combat flight sim. So awesome to have all these options. We can never have too many buttons. That's why we have a HOTAS, to have them all under our fingertips. So as we get over to the flight stick, this is when things get really complicated. So you can see that all of these would come up, flash up as little prompts during the tutorial if they were needed. So when it starts going joystick 2, button 14, I would think, what the hell is that? But because I've bound it myself, I know what all of these are. If it told me, if it came up on the screen said what's button 14, I wouldn't know. But when I actually want to do something, I do know because I'm the one that set it up. So contextual interaction, that's basically to select. That's button 1, that's the trigger. So we've got pitch up, pitch down. That's moving the joystick up and down. But remember, I inverted the axis, so it's flipped around. We've got your right and your left. So my joystick, I have the option to twist it if I want to do your. Your is like rudder, or the analogy would be in a car to steer left and right. So if you can't twist your joystick, you might want to set it as something else, maybe rudder pedals. I've got paddles on the front of my throttle, so that's your right. I'll do the right paddle. That's now changed from joystick 1 to joystick 2, which is the throttle. So to go the other way is left. I'll do the other paddle. There we go. We can roll right and roll left, so I do that by moving the stick left and right. So yeah, I can turn, move around 90 degrees, then pull back sharply on the stick to make really tight turns. That's how I'm used to flying aircraft. That's how I'll have the controls. I've got throttle increase. So there is a throttle slider at the base of my joystick, but I don't want to take my hand off the stick. I want to keep my left hand on the throttle that I own, so I might as well use the throttle to increase and decrease the speed. You use whatever you want to use. We've got combo boost. So anything that says combo means when you bind this button, it has multiple uses. So it will boost, and if I'm holding it down, it will enable the drift whilst boosting. As I've got plenty of buttons, I decided to do the pinky button on my throttle as drift as well. I can afford to do that. So we've got fire, that is the main trigger on the joystick. We've got combo again. So this is fire left auxiliary. Now, when you first play the game, the left auxiliary will be the droid to repair the hull of your ship, but you can change it as you unlock stuff through the game. And that's where the combo comes in, because it says dumbfire. So if it was a missile, technically you want to lock on to target before you fire. Dumb firing means firing without the lock. So I can double tap to force the missile or torpedo or whatever it is to fire. So what else have we got? Fire right auxiliary. So again, it's a combo. If it locks on, or we can just fire it without the lock. Deploy countermeasures. Awesome that this is done separately and it's not like a selectable thing, because that means we can have a keyboard shortcut, and that really helps with voice attack. Voice attack hates when it has to select something, through menus. So it's great that the devs thought of that. You can bind it to whatever key you want. That says 210. I know exactly where that is on the hat switch on my throttle. We've got combo again. So power to engines. If I push left on the hat switch on my joystick, it's putting power into engines. I can keep tapping it to put more and more power into them. Or I can just hold it down. That's the combo. And that puts maximum power into the engines. So it seems confusing, but it's really, really not when you break it down. Some of these are blanked out because there's no need for me to have them bound, because it's covered under a combo button. One button is doing many, many, many functions. So yeah, we can do power to weapons instead. We can push up. We can do power into the shields. We can push right or hold it right to put maximum power into the shields. We can push down on the hat switch and that resets the power across the board. We've got focus shields, front, rear, or balance them. So I've got a hat switch, the middle one on my throttle under the thumb. So when I push up on it, that's telling me it's 7. But I know I'm just pushing up to go front, down will be rear. If I want to reset them, balance them, I think right, R for R, right is reset. So I push right on the hat switch to balance the shields out. We can, when we're flying for the Imperials, we don't have shields for the most part. For the TIE fighters, that has a different mechanic in that you can convert power to just let you shoot amazingly quickly, put a lot of power into weapons or put a lot of power into engines, but it does it very, very, very quickly. So yeah, it's just different styles of play, but the devs have worked on it to balance things out. But yeah, TIE fighters just don't have shields. That's how it is. So we've got the focus shields convert power. And it doesn't really point that out, but what that is a radial menu that will come up. And it's, as I say, it depends whether you're flying for the Rebels or for the Imperial, whether it'll be focus shields or convert power. So it's saying shield power menu selects. That will be the trigger to make the selection. We can go through the menu up, down, left, and right with the hat switch on my joystick, but set it to whatever you want to do. We've got another combo. So select target ahead. That's button 2 on the joystick. I know that's directly below the hat switch. And if I hold it down, it brings up the targeting wheel. And once I've held it down, once that targeting wheel comes up, it's toggle. So that stays on the screen. I don't need to keep holding that button down. I can let go, use the hat switch on top of the joystick to make my selections. So it says select target ahead, which has been left blank. Well, that's because it's done with the combo button. We're doing it as button 2 to do both of the functions. We've got combo cycle targets, so that's saying button 5 on the joystick. But this is an example where I've got buttons on the base of my stick that aren't particularly practical for me to touch in VR, so I don't actually want to use those. I've put it onto the throttle instead. So cycle targets, there's a 2-way switch under my middle finger. If I push it down, if I keep pushing down, it will flick through the targets for me. If I move it up, it will target what is attacking me, and then I can get them in my sights and take them out. So targeting wheel is blanked out because that's covered under a combo key earlier. Targeting wheel select, well, that will be the trigger on the joystick. And again, we navigate around it using the hat switch. But I do have a gamepad style thumbstick on my throttle under my index finger. Maybe I want to navigate through menus using that. I can bind that instead if I really, really want to. So yeah, lots of other shortcuts that we don't necessarily need to bind because it will come up in the radial menus. We've got a combo ping target. So pinging target means I can say, right, everybody attack that Star Destroyer or everybody defend that Corvette. Just pointing at a target and pinging it. As a combo, the same button, if I double tap it, I can acknowledge the pin, what I've been told to protect or attack. If I hold it down, then it brings up the comms wheel. Now, I don't really need to worry about that because I've got a microphone in my Rift S headset, but not everybody plays with a mic. If you've ever play Battlefield, you'll know that. So we can bring up this comms menu just to do like a thank you or, make idle threats and stuff like that. It's just an easy way to make communication to people that don't use microphones. So ping target, acknowledge ping, comms wheel. I don't need to bind those because it's all done through the one combo button. There's the comms wheel to select it. We know that'll be the trigger. So again, we can either use the hat switch. Maybe I want to bind it off to the throttles stick. Then we've got the free look. So it's saying joystick 2, which is the throttle. Now I know when I click in that stick on my throttle, that is button 6, and that'll activate the free look. So if I'm not in VR, I'm on my monitor, then when I move that stick around, I can look up, down, left, and right to look inside the cockpit, or probably more importantly, to look outside through the canopy to look for targets. It looks like there's an awful lot of controls. There's not really when you break it down. But as I say, if you bind these controls yourself, you're more likely to remember what they are. So I'll just discard the changes because I don't want to use the paddles for the rudder. What we want to keep in mind is that you can go into multiplayer training and go into practice, and it says experiment with starfighter components, practice new combat strategies, and master maneuvers on the obstacle course. So if you can bind the controls, have a little play around, see what you like. In the practice mode, you can spawn in enemy fighters, spawn in an enemy flagship, bringing up an obstacle course to race through. The world's your oyster, really. And once you've got your controls down and you're happy, you can go into multiplayer or continue with the story. So hopefully that's helped, guys. Best I could. I didn't want to go on too long. Have a great day. Have a great evening, whatever it is you choose to do after watching this. And I'll see you soon with some more videos on Star Wars Squadrons. Ciao for now.